All right, the Board of Governors meeting is called to order. I'm going to be very brief in my comments this morning because I know everybody is anxious to get moving, and if we're lucky, we can do this meeting in less than 1 hour. I want to again thank President Law, Tallahassee Community College, for allowing us to meet here and to providing us with the hospitality that he has, and I appreciate staff and the work that they've had to do to make this happen. This time of year, of course, we're in the fourth week or approaching the fourth week of the legislative session. We are now, as you know, focused on the budget, and that's going to be the most important thing that we work on for the rest of the time. We've been very happy about the progress that our major bills that are part of our initiatives have made through the legislative process thus far. We, of course, had a few bumps along the way, and we'll probably have more before it's over. President Delaney will cover all of our legislative activities that you need to hear about in his remarks. So therefore, we will not have item 4 on the agenda. It will be included in his remarks. It's nice to see the presidents here. Hopefully they'll pay attention. And
we just settled all the problems, right?
I'm sure, and every time I see somebody drawing on a napkin, I get a little bit.
Two universities.
Particularly that one.
We don't want anything that floats off.
All right. Moving along. Anyway, everybody has been very good. All of the universities and our staff have all been working very well together. And I can say personally that the receptions I have received as I've gone around the halls have been very positive, and I think it's a whole different ball game this year, as we've seen with at least what we've seen from the Senate. I know that we're about to begin the posturing stage to set up for the conference committee, so there's a lot of work to be done. We all know that. Thanks to everybody again for the participation in a 2-day meeting. Hopefully we can do this one time a year associated with the legislative session. I thank the staff very much for the job they did in putting together that economic development piece yesterday. I thought it was very well done. I've asked staff to edit the video that was taken of that and try to make a CD of it so that we can utilize that with the legislature and others as we move ahead. I want to thank the committees for all the work that they're doing. I see that the committee structure is toting most of the weight, and that's the way it ought to be, and I appreciate these committee meetings were very interesting and full of substance, and that's what needs to happen. Our board meeting needs to just be kind of a more perfunctory kind of thing, receiving those reports and moving on. So with that said, this is the time for us to continue to stick together and to contact each other when things happen so that we maintain the same spiel. But we hope that we can get together by phone, the Chancellor and I, with the presidents of the schools that have medical schools, to discuss here shortly how we're going to proceed through the rest of the session to make sure that we get the extra money that is necessary for the 4 schools that we established as priorities. And so I'm looking to President Delaney to make that happen here in the next week or two. And, well, it actually should be in the next week. I was very impressed with the work done on the GI Bill and the veterans activities and that we heard about in the Student Affairs Committee, and Governor Duncan did a great job with that. But I think we should seriously consider taking President Ginshaft up on our offer to host a national event to try to become a leader in this area. This is a very important thing for Florida because we have so many military bases here. But of course, this will be based on the recommendation of staff. But I thought that sounded like a good idea if we could pull it off. It wouldn't be good if we couldn't do a good job at it. So anyway, this is the time that I don't like, and that is to say goodbye to Governor Meyer, who has done a wonderful job. He's been delightful to know. Hope we keep in touch with you. And so, with that said, would you come to the podium? As with all of our outgoing members, we have for you a resolution today. Whereas A.J. Meyer has provided dedicated service to the state of Florida as the representative of the Florida Student Association on the Board of Governors, State University System of Florida from May 2008 and May 2009. And whereas Mr. Meyer has been an effective member of this board and has used his position to encourage discussion and interest in the issues affecting students in the State University System and to inform board members on these topics. And whereas there are few guidelines for the student member of the Board of Governors, nevertheless, Mr. Meyer has displayed an understanding of the issues and the areas in which this board can offer leadership and vision for all the universities in the system, and has reminded the board of its responsibilities to the 302,513 students enrolled in Florida's public universities. And whereas during his tenure on the board, Mr. Meyer has been a strong advocate for maintaining the quality of the state university system, as this is critical to the value of the student's educational experience. And whereas Mr. Meyer has now completed his service as the chair of the Florida Student Association and will now yield his seat on this board to his successor, now therefore be it resolved that the members of the Board of Governors meeting on the campus of Tallahassee Community College in Tallahassee on the 26th day of March 2009 do hereby commend A.J. Meyer for his contributions to the Board of Governors and to the State University System, and to wish him well, and be it further resolved that this resolution be presented to Mr. Meyer as a token of the Board's appreciation and thanks. So thank you very much. Thank you.
I know we're trying to get this meeting finished within an hour, and I do not have any prepared remarks. However, this has been the most enthralling experience so far in my young career. Working directly with President Medique at FIU has been a great experience. He has been a true mentor to me throughout the process. And when I came in, it seems, honestly, just like the other day, when I came in this position, I probably had the two most difficult decisions that any student, trustee, and Board of Governor member would have. And that would be to close down programs at your university, as well as to vote on the new chair and vice chair of the Board of Governors. And although I thought it was going to be the most difficult time, those two votes, it hasn't been. This has been the most difficult time in trying to deal with this budget situation, and what we're dealing throughout the state and what our students are facing. And I just ask of all of you to continue your support of higher education, as I know you will, but I just want to make that point, because without you all, we cannot survive as students. Your leadership and the way that you're able to empower the youth is remarkable, and I commend each and every one of you for that. If it wasn't for many of you that I've developed great relationships with over the past year, I would not be where I am today, and I thank you all for that, and thank you again for this great opportunity. Thank you.
I just want to take a brief moment. We have here also a resolution, which I will not read in toto, for Governor Lynn Pappas, who had resigned effective at the end of last year. I just want to make sure that we all acknowledge how much we miss her, because she was a very, very good governor and pulled her weight and then some, and had excellent ideas, had a very organized mind, and was very, very much able to move difficult issues along. So I want us to be sure to make it clear that we recognize her. We did invite her to come today to receive the recognition, but she was unable to do so. So we will get this resolution to her, and it's a resolution recognizing her distinguished service to Florida and to the Board of Governors from 2003 through December 31st, 2008. And hope that she will remember this as a good experience in her life and will continue to contribute to us. And I know now from time to time I will give her a call. I do give her a call, and she's always willing to give me some very good ideas. So thanks to Lynn Pappas. Can we have some? Okay, President Delaney.
Thank you, and I will not take much of the board's time, but I have a few things should comment on, and then we'll include the legislative report as I go along. First, I would like to say that the staff of the Board of Governors is tremendous to work with. They have healthy attitudes, great work ethic, they're bright, they're thinking, and they certainly are really here to try to improve the system, and being able to see, work with them in this relationship has been a positive. I think you should be very happy with those that have been hired and down the years. Now on to the legislature. Obviously, we've got a number of bills that are very, very important to us. The tuition authority bill is now ready for a floor vote in the House. Leadership in the Senate has said that have promised that they will get the bill out. Senator Lynn has got a few tweaks that she wants to do with it. And I'm just going to work through those in the course of the next few weeks. The prepaid agreement is also going through a couple of iterations, but the core of it is clearly still preserved, and there's some exchanges going back between House and Senate staff and prepaid, but we'll be on top of those. But I think the ultimate agreement is going to be good for all of us. The chair mentioned the medical school funding. That a major objective is to get all 4 of the medical schools funded at the levels of their requests, and there's a pretty good receptivity to that. Some more strongly in favor of the new schools, some more strongly in favor of the existing medical schools, and obviously our objective is to get all 4 funded. There's a couple of what I guess more than technical bills, but relating to facilities construction and Cortellis matching that we're trying to see some minor but significant changes to. Those also have been received very well. I think I mentioned in the email that I sent out that it looks like there's some discussion on a fix, whatever a fix would mean to Bright Futures. That looks like that's fading right now. But again, in the legislature, things move sort of on a pendulum. Once they swing, then after a few years, there typically is action. The big issue, of course, is funding, and the size of the budget cut or the revenue drop is just unbelievable. Roughly a quarter of the revenue of the state is disappearing year over year. The stimulus plan would make up about half of that, which means even if the stimulus funding is used, we still have a 12-13% drop that we'd have to deal with. So new revenue is on the lips of many, but not all in the legislature. Clearly the Senate, in their proposal yesterday, was very, very positive to the universities, not so much so to, of course, the Board of Governors itself. And we'll make that a priority in the next few weeks to make sure that the funding for the staff, that we don't have to take big hits there. The House, again, is not as receptive to the idea of new revenue, either taxes or fees. But as has been mentioned here, and I've talked with Norm and Tico and a few others, the reception this year is completely different. To borrow a phrase I used yesterday when we met, the legislature really views higher education as a solution to the short and long-term problems of the state, that there has to be an investment in that the way the international economies have shifted, that higher ed is critical. And I think the signal from the Senate yesterday is a great statement, a great testament to that. But every legislator that I visited with, just like Sheila said, that wants to help. They really are wrapped around how they can try to minimize, if not eliminate, the reductions in the budget. So I feel pretty positive about that when the dust settles, that the cuts will be a little smaller than some of the doomsday scenarios that we're working for. But again, all of us have to prepare for the bigger numbers in the event that they do transpire. You know, I have not been able to communicate with great regularly, say on the phone with Board of Governors members, and I will about every week or two send out a little email, sort of like I did last week, summarizing how things look. But please feel free to contact, phone call, email on if you have any particular issue. Obviously, I've still got UNF to run, and during the session it makes it a pretty busy time. But if you've got any question at all, please feel free to go contact directly. And in conclusion, I'll say I'm enjoying it, enjoying working with you, and enjoying working with the staff in the legislature. And over to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions about any of the legislative activities before we move on? Because we're not going to have any more discussion on that subject.
Could I just clarify, did you say that the fix to Bright Futures, the impetus for that is fading right now? So
Yes.
it'll be another year or so?
Yeah, it could pop up, but there's nobody championing a particular reform. And, you know, last year, Chancellor Rosenberg tried to float a few concepts, and the legislature didn't want to hear it. Early on, I thought that they really were going to address it because of the magnitude of the cuts. I think the stimulus funding has removed some of the impetus to do that.
The next item on the agenda is consent agenda items for approval. These are three regulations that had been noticed last time. This is for final approval. There have been no comments or suggested changes since that time. They deal with annual accountability report from the Forward by Design goals, and the proposed regulations adds FIU for its faculty practice plan self-insurance. Does anybody have, can I have a motion?
Move approval, Madam Chair.
Okay, so many in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Madam Chair.
Moving on to item 6.
Madam Chair, I'd
I'm sorry.
also like to move approval of the board minutes, January 29th, as well as our conference call meeting on February
Yeah,
10th.
sorry, I went too fast.
Second.
Any comments, corrections, modifications for either of the sets of minutes? Hearing none, and without objection, show the minutes approved. Sorry, move to item 6. Thank you for catching that. I call on Governor Roberts to give a brief report on the Chancellor Search Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our consultant, Bill Funk of R. William Funk and Associates, placed search advertisements in 3 publications: Chronicle of Higher Education, Women in Higher Education, and Diverse. The ad stated that applications would be accepted until the position is filled, but that for optional considerations, interested parties should submit their materials by March 31st. Submit them to the consultant. We will hold a committee meeting by telephone in April, and everyone will be duly notified, and we will notice that meeting, of course. We don't have a date at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Governor Roberts. Any questions on the topic? All right. There was no meeting of the trustee nominating, so we'll move to Governor Duncan on student affairs.
Yes, I'd like to move approval of the notice of intent to amend DOG Regulation 6.0105 regarding student conduct and discipline.
Second.
And there's no disagreement.
Okay.
Okay, so many in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, show it adopted. I don't think we need to hear any more report. Everybody just attended the meeting. Governor Martin, your strategic planning committee from yesterday.
Yes, under the strategic planning committee, there were 3 items that we discussed, 2 that require action. The first item is the medical education funding report that we received yesterday. Initially, it was a discussion item, but the committee took action, so I'm recommending that we accept the report.
Second.
So any discussion? So any in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
The second item was a report, follow-up on the distance learning task force. There was quite a bit of discussion about that yesterday. There were a number of follow-up actions that will be taken by some of our team groups, so that's just an ongoing process. The third item was the termination of the University of Florida PhD program in engineering mechanics. This was a recommendation coming from the University of Florida. We are asking that we waive the normal process where we would hear something on a committee level and then have it for the next board meeting. So there are two actual motions. The first motion will be to waive our normal process.
Any discussion on the motion? So many in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And then the last item would be to actually approve the termination of the degree program at the University of Florida PhD in engineering mechanics.
Any discussion? Any objection? So adopted without objection.
Thank you for that
Okay,
report.
Governor Parker had to leave to get back to Jacksonville for a meeting, so Governor Perez will carry the report for both facilities and budget and finance.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and as you know, we started a joint meeting yesterday and concluded it this morning. There are several motions that we need to adopt. As President-in-Residence Delaney pointed out, the Senate was very good in their initial budget plan. Representative Proctor's House Committee met this morning. He just gave a broad overview of where we were with that 25% reduction. He also has, in his committee, they've been allocated $226 million of stimulus money. And that money was not accounted for in that 25% reduction. So we'll see where that goes. More details, stay tuned. Next week the budget will come out. The Budget and Finance Committee has two motions, and then the Facilities Committee has several others. The motions approved in the Budget and Finance Committee this morning and yesterday. Number one, we approved the estimated 2009-2010 operating budgets for auxiliary facilities that have bond covenants that require our board approval as presented at the committee meeting. We'll move that as a committee.
Any discussion? Any objection? So adopted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The second motion from the Budget Committee is to approve the 2010-11 legislative budget request, development guidelines for the operating and the fixed capital outlay budget, and authorize President-in-Residence Delaney to make technical amendments or adjustments as required based upon the 09-10 legislative appropriations.
Any discussion? Any objection? So adopted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first motion from the Facilities Committee, we had a few changes in light of the PICO reductions to the PICO priorities and budget amounts. They were adopted by committee this morning. The motion from committee is to approve the amendments as proposed in the 09-10 SUS fixed capital outlay legislative budget request.
Any discussion? Any objection? So adopted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The second motion from the Facilities Committee was to adopt a resolution approving the issuance of fixed-rate tax-exempt debt by University of West Florida Foundation, Inc. to the Escambia County Housing Authority in an amount not to exceed $15 million for the purpose of financing a student residence facility on the main campus at University of West Florida.
Any discussion? Any objection? So adopted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next motion was to approve the notice of intent to amend and renumber current Board of Governors Chapter 21 regulations for campus master planning after a review of the campus master plan work, which was done wonderfully by all those involved.
Any discussion? Any objection? So adopted.
And finally, Madam Chair, we have a motion for notice of intent to amend and renumber former Board of Regents Chapter 6C-17 regulations to promulgate Board of Governors Regulation 17.001 with regard to leasing authorities.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Any objection? So adopted.
Madam Chair, that concludes our report. We will remain ever vigilant on the House's actions next week.
Thank you so much. Governor Tripp, you have one item that carried over from last meeting.
The committee reviewed the early audit Compliance Committee reviewed the early draft of its charter on November 5, 2008. Between then and the committee's next meeting on January 28th, much discussion and collaboration between board staff, state university audit council members, and university general counsels took place. The committee unanimously approved the draft with some minor changes at its January 28th meeting for consideration by the full board today. And the Audit and Compliance Committee charter is before you today, and I move its approval and ratification.
Any discussion? Show it adopted. Any objection? Show it adopted. All right, do any of the presidents have anything they'd like to say before we adjourn? I see President Brogan is here today. Do you have anything to say for yourself?
I just wanted to thank you and President Delaney. I concur. There's a different atmosphere this year, and I also want to do double thanks to President Delaney. Running a good-sized university is a full-time job, and then doing all of the other things that he's agreed to do for us on a statewide scale is duty above and beyond the call, and he's doing it very, very well. I can tell you that personally. My relationship with him while he's serving in that dual capacity, and I'm sure I speak for my colleagues. Thank you for that, John. Thank you.
President Weatherall, you weren't here yesterday. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
I'm denying all knowledge.
Well, okay, what were you doing?
I mean, it was a different story.
Well, do you have anything you'd like to bring to our attention, seriously?
Well, I was actually in Washington for the last 2 days and met with Speaker Pelosi, and I think if any of us have an opportunity to maybe send a letter up thanking them profusely for the stimulus money, particularly the scientific dollars, I think that would be a good message for any of us to do. There is great concern about what's going to happen 2 years from now when those dollars run out. Not just in the operating piece of it, but they're concerned about research that's begun and how does that continue forward. And I think that is an issue possibly the board might want to think about it as you build a budget 2 years hence. Centers of excellence type dollars are going to become, I think, extremely important. And probably the message was that if you don't have that in your proposal coming forward, you're going to be less than successful. And I think certain states are thinking of 2 years down the road. So I would encourage the board to do that.
Are you talking about National Science Foundation dollars?
Yes, endowment, DOE in particular, there's a lot of money they're sitting on, the green energy issue. So they're looking at defense has dollars, but I think you're going to find in the RFPs that come out, a key element in the future is how are you going to carry this forward? And with that really, matching funds or whatever you want to call it. So it would seem to me the board ought to start positioning itself to the legislature that those dollars are going to become critical for the future growth. I mean, I know we've all drank Kool-Aid for the next 2 years, but it's down the road that particularly relates to scientific research dollars.
Well, I think that's what we began to position ourselves with yesterday when we had our economic development workshop to try to showcase all of those things, and we were talking about how influenced those things are by DOD dollars, National Science Foundation, NIH, et cetera.
And Madam Chair, if I might,
and I agree with you, very good comment.
On this whole issue, as long as we're all sitting here, I've continued to be sort of the skunk at the party on the stimulus money, and believe me, I'm not. I look forward to it as it relates to research and infrastructure and Pell Grants. We'll take it, and it will be very helpful, and we'll use it to everyone's advantage at the university. But there is a continued belief on the part of many, as I regularly hear, that the stimulus money will also provide us a bridge to better times, and therefore we won't have to make many of the changes that we're all out there talking about making. And I'm not reminding you because you all know, especially the presidents who deal with this on the ground, this isn't a bridge. At best, it's a pier. And it may be a short pier, and let me tell you, we all know what happens when you take a long walk off a short pier. We just need to continue to remind people that the money is welcome, and we will put it to good use, both at the university and for economic development, which is the whole premise upon which is built stimulus. But at the same time, with the reductions that we're continuing to make, which are all recurring in nature, President Weatherall's point is not only important regarding research, it's important about everything we do with that money.
Well-
It will have a non-recurring impact and is not going to solve the long-term problems that we're facing.
Well,
And
I think the
know you all are aware of
long-term,
that.
the solutions are well broader than our issues, and I think we really should try to be part of a conversation about how we are going to fund state government going forward, because that's really the bigger question. I mean, it's obvious that a growth-based revenue-raising method is not going to be sustainable through GIPS and so on, the volatility of it. So,
The
really,
research dollars, the other thing that they made it very clear that while they do want jobs, everybody's into that arena. In the research arena, they're into good research also, that is not just designated as getting a job. That's great if it happens, but there are solutions that they're looking for that transcend employment. So I think it seems to me that the short period is a lot shorter than you think, and no sooner than we finish this session, we all know they asked for the budget for next year.
right.
And we ought to start thinking very seriously about those research matching dollars or whatever we want to call it.
I agree. Thank you. Very well, very good comments. President Ammons, do you have anything to say for the good of the order?
Well, I was in Washington a couple of weeks ago meeting with the Florida delegation, and the same sentiments that you've heard from my colleagues have been expressed by the Florida delegation, and how we handle the state budget going forward, especially for long-term financing, recurring financing issues within the state is going to be critical in terms of how we view. I think the other thing that I would say too is that however the stimulus money gets into our budget, there is an expectation that we're going to have some deliverables, that it's not just going to be free money. So we want to put that on the table too, that they're going to be expecting some benefits, tangible benefits from the expenditure of these funds.
Well, point. President Genshaw.
One of the comments that I was making yesterday as I was in various legislators' offices is what we're doing to write and to grants and to be there at the national level. It's not just that we're focusing statewide, but we're also looking for competitive grant applications so that we as a university system just aren't sitting still watching the state worry about the tight budget, but we're out there nationally trying to garner resources that can make a difference for the state, and I think they appreciate it here.
Good. President Hitt? Nothing? President Benz?
No, the one thing that I think that we need to keep in perspective for universities our size in North Florida, Florida Gulf Coast New College, and Florida Atlantic is there is a big push on research, but we have a little bit of a different mission, and sometimes right now it gets a little lost as people are looking at economic drivers, looking at the connection with education and research, and that stimulating our economy. Some of us have other missions, and we do some research, but and it's good research, but it's more targeted and pinpointed, and I know that's what we need to do right now, is to top that up, because the Research One universities are just stars. That's all.
Well, you totally single-handedly rebuilt downtown Pensacola, didn't you, with your archaeological...
Darn right we did. Yes, we did. And it is the next...
So, that's economic development.
And it does. It's kind of the softer, non-hard sciences that we do very well. And it has revitalized downtown Pensacola, and it will continue to do that as we move forward.
Well, I think those are wonderful examples of things. I mean, people don't really realize
They
how
don't.
you connect that so-called intellectual academic pursuit to the reality of living. So it's very important. President Majid, anything?
The only thing I would say is that we are hoping for the best and preparing for the worst.
That's all we can do, one day at a time. President Michelson.
I don't want to be the person standing between somebody getting to their plane on time, but...
Thank you.
Having said that, folks in the legislature I speak with, including one of our own faculty members, confirm what Frank has alluded to earlier, which is the better relationship between this board and the legislature, and there are people in this room who can really take credit for that, so that's helpful to us all, obviously.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else on the board have anything to
I have
say?
a comment,
Yes.
obviously. The thing that I think we ought to talk about for the good of the order every time is that we hear presidents say, the system. We have had in the past a lack of camaraderie about the system. And I hope each time we come together, we recognize the fact that as a system, we're stronger if we stay together and if we're effective individually. We have great presidents who all bring a lot to it. And so I think if we keep going forward as a positive system, the legislature will accept us as somebody that is speaking as a system, and that we will see these rewards coming to the students, and that's at the end of the day what it's about.
Well, I did have two legislators say to me that this is the first year in the 12 or 14 years they had been in the process that all of the schools were on the same page on the significant issues. And so I think that's very important. It is being noticed, and I think that it makes each individual school stronger, but also lifts the quality and status of the whole group. So I appreciate very much the help that you all are giving, and we're here really to serve you, and so we're working very hard to promote the initiatives that we identified early on. And we need to stay that way until we have to diverge, and then if that time comes, we need to talk about it. But, things like that happen. But hopefully not this year. I hope that we can get what we need.
Madam Chair, if I may, just if you can go for 1 second, I just want to make one last comment, and that is my service to the state starts here, and I'm only going to continue my service to this great state. And I thank you, board members. I truly thank each and every one of you, presidents. I thank all of you for the opportunities that you give your students. Staff, thank you so very much for helping me out in this process. And audience, thank you just for being here and being a part of the system. And I'd like to conclude. Thank you.
All right, no more comments. This meeting's adjourned.